Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Noah. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. For those of you who haven't studied with me before, I ask a lot of questions. I'm sure you'll catch on real fast. Starting off tonight with a question. Looking for a word or a phrase of something you've been praying on, or thinking about, or that's been on your heart. And from the gathered words and phrases, a few passages will emerge, we'll vote, and then we'll study. No need to go in any particular order, whoever would like to start. Wisdom.
Hi, my name is Rabbi. I'm tired. Hearing God through dreams.
Hearing God through dreams.
Hey, Esther. Wisdom. Authority. Understanding.
Prophecy.
Sneezing.
Seasons.
Ah. Wow. So deep. Yeah.
Kamaka, walking in your purpose.
Yes, but life of today.
I think that's us. Okay, couple different choices. One choice for thinking about seasons, one angle puzzle piece on seasons, as well as tired, as well as actually a bit of grace and definitely some surrender. We would be in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, looking at the Sabbath, and unpacking the Sabbath, how it works, and what is this whole thing that Jesus is talking about so much throughout, and what are we talking about as we first are introduced to the concept in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, would be one choice. A second choice in a huge conversation about wisdom, as well as understanding and surrender, and kind of, as you said, I think so beautifully, who God's created us to be and how we move towards that, as well as dreams and how we hear God in dreams. We would be in 1 Kings 3, looking at the wisdom of Solomon. Hopefully, we'd spend a bit of time in verse 1, but hopefully try to get to verse 9 and have a bit more time in verse 9. But at least we start in verse 1, jump to verse 5, and then we go forward. Would be a second choice. A third choice for another puzzle piece angle on seasons and surrender. We would be in Genesis chapter 13, verse 14, where God says to Abram, lift your eyes from where you are to the north, south, east, and west. I give all of this land to you and to your offspring forever. And what is these words that God is saying to Abram? And we'd be unpacking the directions north, south, east, and west, which would help us to understand the directions, but all those directions also have another literal meaning, north, south, east, and west. And so what do these directions actually mean in what God is saying he is giving to Abram forever? And to us, really, in that sense, forever. Would be a third choice. And a fourth choice, because why not? We would be in thinking about life after death and fire, and also that dimension of walking to who we've been created to be. We would be in Exodus chapter 3 with Moses at the burning bush. And we would get, I promise we would at least get to, I can't believe I'm going to promise this, we'd at least get to the burning bush itself. and what the burning bush is and how it works, because there's a whole lot more going on there in Exodus 3 at the burning bush, in just the bush itself. And so we would at least get to that puzzle piece. Would be a fourth choice. Good. Any questions about any of these four choices? Okay, then it is voting time. Okay, we are in Exodus chapter 3. So if everyone could please turn to Exodus chapter 3. And if everyone could please take a moment and read to themselves Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. A little background context for how we get to here in Exodus chapter 3. Moses is roughly how old when we meet up with him here in Exodus chapter 3? Roughly 79 to 80 years old. Now we know this because, kind of working backwards, Moses is going to die when he's how old? 120, and they're going to be in the wilderness for how many years? 40 years, meaning kind of working back from that piece of information. He's got to be roughly 79 to 80 years old here when we meet up with him and God at the burning bush. Okay, now, when we think about Moses' life, though, so far, he's 79 to 80 years old. What have been some of the job titles or descriptions that we might use for Moses at this point in his life? Shepherd, right? For the last 40 to 60 years, he's been a shepherd down in Midian. Good. Before he was a shepherd in Midian, what was he?
Prince.
He was a prince of Egypt. Okay, wait. How do we go from prince of Egypt to shepherd in Midian? He killed an Egyptian and then he fled, ran away, right? Okay, so we go from prince of Egypt, like the highest of highs, killing an Egyptian, fleeing away, shepherd down in Midian. Okay, now before though he was even a prince of Egypt, what was he? He was a Hebrew baby boy born where? In Egypt, right? I mean, he was a Hebrew baby boy born in Egypt, meaning therefore he was also a what? A slave, right? Because all Hebrew boys, all Hebrews were slaves down in Egypt. And what were supposed to happen to Hebrew baby boys in Egypt at that time? They were supposed to be killed in the Nile River, right? So here we go. Here's a guy who was born a Hebrew baby slave sentenced to death, put in the Nile River, and then when he ends up being put in the Nile River, though, what happens to him?
He's rescued.
Rescued by who? Pharaoh's daughter, the princess of Egypt, and he becomes that prince, right? Okay, so these are the different things we've known Moses by so far, right? Hebrew baby slave sentenced to death, prince of Egypt, killed a guy, fled, fugitive, shepherd in Midian. Okay, now when most of us think of Moses, though, who do we usually think about? The deliverer. Good. We think of like the kind of Charlton Heston Moses, right? Like goes down to Egypt, 10 plagues, frees the Israelites, parts the Red Sea, goes up Mount Sinai, gets the 10 Commandments, breaks them, gets them a second time, right? You know, all the things we think of Moses, the Moses deliverer Charlton Heston, right? But so far, all of those things, what? Haven't happened yet, right? Meaning I want to suggest the Moses that we all kind of think about, at this point, he's really more kind of mum. Right? Like, his life has been kind of a bit of a what? Oh, Larry's? A mess. That feels so gentle, right? For a guy who killed someone and fled, right? Yeah, it's been a bit of a mess. And he's kind of had some real highs and some real lows. And it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Right? But the guy that we all know, or that we all talk about all the time, is the Moses that we're going to be looking at for the next 40 years of his life, but actually for the first roughly 79 to 80 years of his life, all of those things haven't happened yet. Meaning, just one of the real challenges of Exodus chapter 3 is to climb out of all the things we know about this person, because all of those things haven't happened yet. Not to say they won't, but they haven't yet. Right, and so here we are dealing with Moses, the Hebrew baby boy sentenced to death, the prince of Egypt, the killed someone, the fugitive, the shepherd in Midian, is really the guy we're looking at. The deliverer, as you said so beautifully, Patricia, right, that hasn't really happened yet. meaning Moses is roughly 79 to 80 years old, and yet I want to suggest he's actually at what point in his life?
Start.
Louder, please.
Start.
A start. Gang, he's 79 to 80 years old. Most of us at 79 to 80 years old, 2 years of the way into our life, are thinking about what? Okay, death, or you said? Retirement, right? Retirement, right? This is the time when I finally get to do what? Rest, right? Kick my feet up, chill out a little bit, right? Play golf, watch the sunset into the Mediterranean as I drink a margarita, like retirement life, right? But actually for Moses, as you said so beautifully, he's at the what?
Start.
He's at the start. He's at a beginning. What does it mean to say that 79 to 80 years old, roughly 2/3 of the way into our lives, we could actually be at a new beginning? Louder, please. Hope.
Hopeless.
Oh, it's hopeless to be at a new beginning at 2/3 of the way?
At 79.
That feels hopeless.
I mean, like, I have little strength to do anything.
Sorry, what was it?
I have little strength to do anything at that age.
Yeah?
So what is it constraints to time?
Okay, right? Okay. I might be thinking, God's gonna come and call me what in my life?
23.
22, 19.
Okay, right? When I'm young, right? In what we'll call our prime years usually, right? When I have all that energy, all that strength, all that vigor, all that stuff, right? That we're supposed to have when we're supposed to start. Here God comes calling when we might be thinking,
Nothing. There's no distraction.
louder please.
There's no distraction. It's really nothing.
We don't have the strength.
Louder.
We don't have the strength to get things done.
Okay, right. Therefore I want to suggest it might not be on whose timing. Right? I want to suggest God's really working on whose time? His time, right? I mean, it might not be a time that really feels all that what for me? Good, perfect. Convenient, thank you, right? It might not seem all that convenient for me, and yet, I want to suggest, if God's calling me to do it, louder please? Okay, amen, I gotta do it, but I was just, not only do I have to do it,
These are the grace.
louder please?
He'll give you the grace to do it.
He will give me the grace to do it. You were saying?
It's convenient.
It doesn't have to be convenient at external, okay, right? And he'll give me the grace to do it, meaning I'm not gonna do what he's asking me to do how? In my own strength, in my own might, right? This is not how this is all working, right? He's going to give me the grace. I mean, I might feel like, look, I'm just kind of too old for this. I'm past the time when this makes sense or is logical. And yet, he's going to give me the grace, the strength, right, to do it. It's not going to be through me, myself, and I. Meaning, I think sometimes in our lives, we might think, God couldn't what us anymore. Couldn't use us anymore, right? And what are the reasons that some of us might say, well, he couldn't use me anymore? Ooh, I'm not worthy. Okay, well, I'll return to that for sure. I'm not worthy. What was another one over here?
I've already wasted my youth.
I've wasted my youth. I've wasted my best years.
Time is fast spent, so.
Too old. What was that?
Time is fast spent, so.
Time has passed. You said, Patricia?
Time is fast spent.
What did you say?
She said time is fast spent.
Oh, time. Okay, yes.
And then she said you don't have the skills.
I don't have the skills. Right? And this is where we're looking at someone in Moses who, at this point in his life, might best be known for what? Murder. And yet, that is not for God what? Like this? Okay, right? This is not eliminating Moses from the conversation, right? This is not a disqualifying factor. I might think I'm unworthy, as you said, I think so beautifully, right? It couldn't be me. For all of the myriad of reasons, I would say it couldn't be me. Here we're looking at a guy who's 79 to 80 years old, who might be best known in his life for killing someone and throwing away his life. And yet, not disqualified? Not eliminated? So when I ask again, what does it mean to say that at 79 to 80 years old, we could actually be at a new beginning, a fresh start? Second chance, hopeful. Amen.
Maybe an awakening.
Could you say more?
An awakening.
Can you expand?
So the past few years I've been ignorant, and I'm just finally waking up to the truth that is.
What'd you say?
Maybe it was the right time for it.
Ah, louder please.
It was the right time for
It was the right time for God. Meaning, as we kind of said before, it's not about when necessarily when it's convenient for me, right? As you so beautifully said. When is it actually the right time for God?
This time.
His time. And as you said before, He will give us this. He will give us the grace, that strength. It's not coming just through me, myself, and I alone. And that's where to try to climb into. I think one of the hardest things sometimes for maybe this is just me, but when I think I've really done something wrong, that God can still use me. Right? That it's not necessarily over, it's not the end. And it might even be when I'm far advanced in years, still doesn't mean it's past what's possible. Good. Okay. Any questions, comments, thoughts before we get into verse 1?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, God using Moses at 18, could we say that it means he hasn't been ready all his life? Or it could be the ordination of God that that's the age when he wants to use it?
Okay. So this gets to, I think, a really fun thank you for asking this question. It's such a good question. When we think about Moses, he's 79 to 80 years old. Now, Joseph is going to become second in command of all of Egypt when he's how old? Anyone happen to know? 17, his father sends him out. But at how old when he becomes second in command of all of Egypt?
30.
30 years old. Very good. Okay, so Joseph is 30 years old. Okay, but how old was Abram when God calls him to go forth from his native land, his kingdom, and his father's house, the land that God will show him? He's 75 years old. Huh, okay. He's 75 years old. But how old was Solomon when he became king in the land of Israel? 12 to 15 years old. Right? Meaning, I want to suggest, to I think your question, there is no really what? Specific age formula, set time when it's like, okay, well, if I know that I hit 30 and I haven't happened yet, then it couldn't happen. Or if I think, but simultaneously I want to suggest, I think, to the other part of the question you raised, which I think is really just such a beautiful way of putting it, it might be if it hasn't happened, as you said, what?
Does it mean that I'm not ready?
And that's what I want to suggest. God's not going to ask us to do something that we can't do. To your question, God's not asking us to do things that we're not able to do. And in thinking about that, He gives us the grace, right, to do it. The notion that He's going to ask me to do something that is just flatly and utterly impossible, even with Him, is and that's why I think your question about the readiness part is so hugely important to think about where Moses is. Because if we think about where Moses is, if I'm Moses, I might be thinking for the last 40 to 60 years as a shepherd in Midian, this has all been kind of what? Well, hopefully up to his preparation. We're going to get to about that makes sense in a moment, yes. But I might think it's what? Punishment. And another key word, kind of. A waste. Pointless. Right? What has been the big point of me being here in Midian for 40 to 60 years? What have you been trying to teach me or do with me? Why have I been wasting this time for 40 to 60 years? But again, for 40 to 60 years, Moses has been doing what? He has been a shepherd of sheep in the wilderness. Again, what's Moses going to do for the next 40 years? Be a shepherd of God's sheep in the wilderness, right? If only they would behave like sheep sometimes. Right, good. And I was just, here's kind of the very thing of Moses' life. Literally, his whole life has actually been what? Preparation. But it might at first glance have felt like what? Punishment or a waste. And this is where I want to suggest so often our lives are preparation for our lives. Right? You know, in other words, there will be things that happen in my life. Why is this happening? Why am I doing this? What is the purpose of what I'm here for? Why am I wasting all this time? And actually, so very often, those things are preparatory for the very thing that God's going to ask me to do. And yet, in the moment, it might feel utterly wasteful and pointless. Okay, so this far but no further. Looking for 3 volunteers for a real-life example from our own lives of a time when I did not understand what was going on or why I was doing something, and then I could see the bigger purpose in how it had prepared me. I think they're so helpful in illuminating, right? Almost just the real lifeness of Moses' life. Why am I doing these things? What is the point of this? And it might seem like something that's almost as innocuous as, I gotta be 15 minutes early, right? And it doesn't seem like it's a big thing. And then, I step out into life beyond, and it's like, oh no, that's actually a really helpful thing that I wasn't doing and didn't really know how to do, how to make life work in that way. And then, this is the point of what that was all about. And it's 40 to 60 years game in the wilderness. What am I doing? You know, all of the questions that would likely arise, what is the point of this? Why? And yet, absolutely preparation for the very thing he's going to be asked to do for the next 40 years of his life. Our lives are preparation for our lives. Okay, any other questions, comments, thoughts before we get to verse 1? Yes.
Okay, so I know you said basically everything he went through is like a preparation for what was to come. However, I don't know, from what I got from what he was trying to say is it possible that because Moses murdered somebody, that was why the time was elongated? So perhaps if he did not murder, you know, the what's it called? I mean, he would not have had to exile, and then he would not, you know, have had to, you know, go through that extra, I don't know.
I want to suggest it's kind of the tension of the what if, right? You know, it's the, is it possible? Yes, maybe, and I want to suggest Moses really needs to be able to know how to do what well? Shepherd. And what's going to be hard for him to learn how to do in Egypt? Shepherd, right? As a prince of Egypt, you will not shepherd, right? Like that is just not what you're going to learn how to do there. You're going to learn a lot of skills, and those will be very helpful in other regards, but you know, this is part of the tension of the parent, and it's so hard to know. You know, it's yeah. And I think sometimes we perceive something as punishment, right? But at the same time, because he did what he did, he was able to be where for 40 to 60 years. Yeah, because Moses kills the Egyptian, he's able to live where for 40 to 60 years? In the wilderness, and away from what? Okay, away from distractions, as a shepherd, and he is not living under who? Pharaoh. Meaning, I want to suggest Moses gets to do something that is something that so rarely one would get to do. Actually get to live in the real higher up structures of the greatest civilization on planet Earth at the time, Egypt, and then to completely separate with no distractions from all of that reality. Right? And how helpful it is sometimes to have the space away from to kind of get the, without, as well as without the distractions, to kind of get a bit more further vision, right, for what was and what is. He's not within that empire, he gets to leave that. And he actually ends up in whose home? Down in Midian. Jethro, or Reuel, depending on the passage. And that's his father-in-law, and his father-in-law is the what? The high priest of Midian. Now, just a real quick thing to touch on, but I hopefully don't want to go too deeply into, because it gets to where is Moses? The Midianites. Anyone happen to know where the Midianites come from? What was that? Oh, sorry. I mean, who are they descendants of? From Adam? Yeah. Even further down the line. Further down the line. Well, roughly the same time, actually. Same time as Lot. Before Lot, I guess technically, but in his lifetime.
Oh, Ishmael?
Before Ishmael. Abraham. Very good. The Midianites are descendants, the sons of Abraham and Keturah. Abraham's spouse after Sarah dies. Abraham has another spouse, Keturah, and from Abraham and Keturah come the Midianites. Literally, these are a group of people that are descendants of Abraham after Abraham has made the covenant with God, the circumcision, all that stuff, which of course then begs the question of, you said, sorry, because you have what? His identity. And actually, by being with the Midianites, he really is. It could be seen as being much more with the family. Right? And there also begs this question, which we just not given a lot of information of, but what are the Midianites practicing as a faith practice? Right? If there's a high priest of Midian, what is their religion? What are they worshiping? Because they're descendants of Abraham. So who is this group of people? And we're just given kind of like stunningly little information about them, but they are descendants of Abraham, and there's a high priest, and well, in Exodus 2, he's Reuel. In Exodus 3, he's Jethro, his father-in-law. It's definitely the same guy, but his name is changing, which is also interesting to just take note of as well. Yes, right? Okay, and that's where you can start to see of where did Moses actually end up, and who did he end up with, and what was he learning as he's in this house, and who is he learning from? And there kind of gets to be just seemingly almost infinite more questions about what does this 40 to 60 years look like for Moses down in Midian. And just one real other interesting fact about Midian. Midian, anyone happen to know what the word Midian means? Midian. So, good guess. Midian. So Moses flees down to Midian, and he's fleeing what? Pharaoh, and also Pharaoh's what? Louder, please. Very good. Midian, quite literally, it's made up of two words: me, which means from, and dayan, which means judgment. So he literally flees down to from judgment. I mean, if you're literally reading what it looks like in Exodus chapter 2, Moses flees Egypt and goes to from judgment. And then he's in from judgment for 40 to 60 years. As a shepherd of the flock in the house of the high priest of Midian. In the house of the high priest of from judgment. Yeah, that's what it starts to just put even more kind of just a little color on the canvas of what life is looking like for him. Hear that and what?
Some thoughts just. No, it's just interesting that flee from judgment. Jethro was a priest, and you can apply that to Jesus in our time.
Okay, yes, say more, yes.
Just
Say more.
Oh, no, so I'm just saying, like, Jethro in our time pretty much represents Jesus, how we flee or we go to him, and he saves us from judgment.
Yes.
So I have a question. So I'm thinking about how when Jesus Christ spoke to people who were obvious physical descendants of Abraham, and he's like, "You're not sons of Abraham," saying that son of Abraham means something much more than just yeah. So when you talk about Midianites being sons of Abraham, does that also have some kind of relationship in that kind of context?
I was just yes, and I think in part. Okay, can you repeat the question again, please? A little bit louder. So
Okay, so Jesus Christ was talking to the Pharisees, right? And they were obviously like Israelites, like they descended from Abraham. But he told them, "You're not sons of Abraham, because if you were sons of Abraham, you would reject me." So that shows that being a son of Abraham goes much beyond just being flesh and blood, like descendants.
okay, so to get to I think a huge piece of what Jesus is talking about here, because you're absolutely right, Ian, to try and unpack a bit more of the roads of what you just said, and I think as well part of what Jesus is talking about, which is so Abraham, he'll be Abram at the time, but Abraham will be the very the people. The group of people that we're talking about here will be referred to as Israelites or what else? Hebrews, oftentimes, right? And later on, Jews, Judah, tribe, but right, Israelites, Hebrews would usually be the two names that get used for them. Now, anyone happen to know the very first person who's referred to as being a Hebrew? Abraham. Very, very good. The very first time, and anyone happen to know? This is a really tough question. The very first time that it's Abram is referred to as being a Hebrew.
After you cross the Jordan?
Very good. Very good. The very first time Abram is referred to as being a Hebrew is Genesis chapter 14, verse 13. It'll say Abram or Abram the Hebrew. And this is where he's going to have to go save Lot the first time, in Genesis chapter 14, 13, and he gets those guys to come along with him, and then he meets up with King Melchizedek, and all that happens in Genesis 14, right? But actually, Genesis chapter 14, verse 13 is the very first time that a person is referred to as being a Hebrew. Now, as you said, at this time, he has done what? Crossed over the River Jordan. Now, again, this is where the word Hebrew in Hebrew is a really helpful word to know what it means. Anyone happen to know what the word Hebrew in the Hebrew language means?
I'm reading from my, if you don't mind, to descended from Eber, or one who crosses Eber.
Ah, good. Okay, very, very good. Hebrew quite literally means to cross over. To cross over. So Hebrew, in the Hebrew language itself, Ever in Hebrew, literally means to cross over. And as you said, the very first time he's referred to as being a Hebrew or a crossoverer is when? When he's crossed over the River Jordan. And he's crossed over into the what? The land that will later be known as the Promised Land. Right? Meaning, I want to suggest, and this gets to a huge conversation, right? But when we're saying the word Hebrew, to cross over, as that translation so beautifully said, to cross over something, and Eber is technically his name, literally, which is a whole thing, which is so fun in Genesis 11, yeah. But right, so Hebrew in Hebrew quite literally means to cross over. And I want to suggest, right, by Genesis 14:13, as you're so beautifully pointing to, Abram is crossed over from outside of Canaan to inside of Canaan. Right, from outside of knowing God to inside of knowing the one and living God. Right, meaning being a Hebrew is not strictly or solely about what? Ah! Say it again, please. It is not strictly about being a descendant of Abraham, one's flesh and blood, right? What my blood is. That is not simply or solely what it means to be a Hebrew, right? Because he is most certainly referred to as being a Hebrew after this point. Yes.
So does this also mean that the people he crossed with, his men who eventually took the battle to go capture, to go save his cousin, does that make them Hebrew too, even though they were slaves?
Okay, this gets to yes, and to get to why this makes sense to go forward, but then to say yes, 100% yes, and why this would make sense, which is, it gets into, right, being a Hebrew is not simply, as was said, right, by my descendants, my blood, my lineage. It's hugely about our what? Our mind and our heart posture. Okay, thank you, right? Our relationship with God, right? Our minds and our hearts posture relationship with God is hugely about what it means to cross over. Right? I've crossed over into a relationship with God. I've Hebrewed. Now, this is where, just to pick up on this question, because it's such a phenomenal question. In Exodus chapter 12, verse 38, we are told that who left Egypt? Was it only descendants of Jacob / Israel? No, we're told who left Egypt. It was a mixed multitude. Exactly right. Exodus chapter 12, verse 38. A mixed multitude left Egypt. Meaning, who left Egypt?
Egyptians.
Some Egyptians. Israelites, sons of Jacob, Israel, and also probably some other people groups who had migrated down to Egypt, people from other tribes, other places. Right? And they are literally, in Exodus chapter 14 and 15, going to do what? Cross over the Red Sea. Now, after those people cross over the Red Sea, does it ever again say some descendants of Jacob / Israel and some other people groups left Egypt? No, what do we call them? Hebrews and Israelites, right? They're forever referred to as Hebrews and Israelites because they've literally done what? Crossed over, right? By definition, they are crossoverers, right? You know, I've crossed over, I've Hebrewed. And therefore, as far as God's concerned, I am a Hebrew, right? You know, and that's where I want to. Well, we're going to turn to that one more second, right? But you can start to see how Hebrew is not really about my blood type or my genealogy, who my ancestors are. No, have I crossed over into a relationship with God? And that's really what being a Hebrew is, right? Because a mixed multitude left Egypt. They are never again referred to as a mixed multitude. They are always referred to as Hebrews and Israelites. Right? It never. Now, this is where, though. Okay, well. And in that sense, I want to suggest when we're talking about Hebrew, one could see this as a very large conversation, especially going forward in Scripture. If language we would use later in the New Testament, we might say one is what? Born again. New created. Called out. Thinking of a word that starts with G. Yeah. We'll have another phrase in the New Testament. We'll say that one is kind of grafted. Thank you, grafted in. Right? We'll have phrases like grafted in, or born again. Right? And I want you can start to see how these words, these phrases are actually. You can start to see some of the. Please. Exactly. You can see some of the earliest formulations of these words, these concepts of how God is bringing people in. We're talking about people being Hebrews, who are most clearly not simply blood descendants of Abraham, and yet they are most certainly Hebrews. And they would marry into the tribes, they would join a tribe, and they're Hebrews, they're Israelites. And actually, you can even start to see as well in when Moses, Numbers 11 or 12, where Aaron and Miriam are not being so kind to Moses, and talking about Moses' new wife as being a what? Anyone recall? They're giving him a bad time about his new wife because she's from. Sorry, yes. You can even start to see how this plays out in how God is handling people not recognizing people being a Hebrew. It's in Numbers 11 or 12, which I apologize, I might be on which one exactly, but it's in Numbers 11 or 12 where Moses takes another wife, and Aaron and Miriam are not being very kind, and they keep referring to her as a what? And very specifically from where? They repeatedly call her a Cushite. How could he marry this Cushite? What is he doing? And God does not take very kindly to that behavior, right? Because in essence, they're saying what about Moses' bride? She's not a Hebrew, except for, hey, look, if she's with us, by definition, she's crossed over, right? And so why are we saying she's different? She's absolutely one of us. This is not an other, this is a part of us. What does it really mean to say that being a Hebrew isn't about our race or our ancestors or our blood, but about our relationship with God? Yeah.
So based on this, can we then say that there were Hebrews before Abraham?
I think you could very much to make an argument for Noah, without a doubt, and Enoch, but in the concept of in relationship with God, it's Abram is the first person referred to as being a Hebrew, although as you pointed to beautifully, there's a person literally named Hebrew in Genesis 11. But putting aside the whole of what's going on there in Genesis 11, he's the first person referred to it as. I think to your exact point, it's hugely about relationship with God, our mind, our heart space, and not simply about blood. And that's where, can you repeat the question that you asked at the very beginning?
Is it possible that the people before Abraham?
Oh, sorry, the prior question.
Yeah.
The one about Jesus. No, the first question.
Oh yeah. So I was like, so based on this, the Midianites, how many the sons of Abraham? Could we look at it from that perspective? Of these are people who have a relationship with God as well.
Exactly, and that's where, if I've crossed over in a relationship with God, I've crossed over. By definition, I'm a Hebrew. Right? If I cross over, it's not exactly. And that's where you can start to see how this word gets to be a much larger meaning word than simply.
That's easy.
Another very famous word, also in the line of David and Jesus, is Ruth. Right now, Ruth is she was born from what tribe? The Moabites. The Moabites, right? Of all the tribes, right? The Moabites. Right? And how did the Moabites get to exist?
Through Lot's
Yes, through Lot.
his daughters, the incestuous.
Exactly. Lot sleeping with his daughters. Here we have the Moabites. And here comes Ruth. Now, Ruth comes from about a line that I think most people, for how many hundreds of years, would say, a man sleeping with his daughter. What could ever come from that? Nothing good, right? All the people who would say, look, this is incest, and therefore, it's not what? It's not clean, it's cursed, and it could not be what else?
Used.
Worthy. Used. God couldn't use this. God couldn't redeem this, right?
Yeah.
Except for, here we have Ruth. And this is not to say hooray for incest. I'm not trying to go, right? This is not us saying, for people to go do that. But just the notion that God couldn't use it, or God couldn't redeem it, or that God won't. Here comes Ruth. She's most certainly a Hebrew. By the end of her life, she's called a Hebrew, right? And so here we go. She's no longer a Moabitess. She's a Hebrew. She's crossed over into that relationship with God, even though she wasn't there in the big Exodus, or right, she wasn't there with Abram. She's absolutely crossing over. And that's where it gets to a huge thing that I think you're raising. Is that helpful? Okay. Sorry, was that? Well, and it gets to, I think, a really important puzzle piece about what it means to Hebrew. And that the people who leave Egypt have to Hebrew over the Red Sea. Right? They gotta cross over the Red Sea. They're literally gonna Hebrew. Is that the only time they need to cross over? No, now it's gotta cross over when? The Jordan to do what? To go into the promised land. Right? Meaning, it's not simply a Hebrew once, and it's all. Meaning, in our lives, I want to suggest we probably are going to need to Hebrew multiple times. Right? Not just one crossing over. Now, there might be, right, a first crossing over into relationship with God that is a big moment that we really remember. There might be an event that will be done, right, to commemorate something like this. And then I want to suggest there's probably going to be multiple crossing overs throughout our lives. Meaning, I'm not just simply a Hebrew if I chose to cross over the Red Sea. I've got to keep what? I got to keep crossovering. I got to keep Hebrewing. Be that every day, every moment, every second. Will I continue to cross over into that relationship with Him? Maybe I want to suggest this isn't one where it's entirely a one and done, right? If I stop crossing over, I kind of stop being a Hebrew.
So when we talk about this multiple crossing overs, right? So we have the Red Sea and the Jordan. So this relates to when John says, I baptize you with water, but the one who comes after me will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. Because I know that Moses took him through the Red Sea, but it was Joshua that took him through the Jordan. So so is this somehow?
Can you say the whole thing again? That was perfect. Yes.
So how we saw the crossing of the Red Sea and the Jordan. Does it relate to when John the Baptist said, I baptize you with water, but the one who comes after me will baptize you with Holy Spirit and fire? And we see it was Moses who took them to the Red Sea, but it was Joshua that took them across the Jordan. And you see,
Okay, and that's where, okay, just, did everyone track on what Ruby just said there? Okay, so just to pick up on because you said a lot in that one, I'll say there was a lot there. Amen, 100%, like the multiple crossing overs that we have to do, and as well in thinking about John's role. When we're with Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration, who's with him there? Moses and Elijah. Okay, now if we think for a moment, Moses and Elijah. Who follows Moses to lead the people? Joshua. Now Joshua's name is what? Yeshua. Literally the same name as Jesus. Okay, now Elijah. Who follows Elijah? Elisha. And Elisha means
Emmanuel?
it's made up of two words, El and Yasha. So literally, my God is salvation, or salvation is God, or God is salvation. Is quite literally Elisha's name means. My God is salvation, God is salvation, salvation is God. Right? Meaning, who follows Moses and Elijah?
Jesus.
Salvation. And this is where you can start to see when John and Jesus are having that conversation about baptism, and Jesus says to him, who needs to be doing the baptism? You, John, and that's where in parts of scripture it'll say that John is really who? Elijah. Of course he would be Elijah if I knew what follows Elijah.
Was it literally Elijah?
Okay, oh sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. This gets to be this gets to be a good question about the comments. But this gets so when we're with, can you repeat what you said at the beginning that brought us here?
sorry?
Can you repeat what you said at the beginning?
Okay, so we see Moses crossing the Red Sea, and it was Joshua who took them across the Jordan, Yeshua, Jesus. And then we see John baptizing people with water, but he said, the one who comes after me is going to baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. And that's literally Joshua. So John did the first baptism, then Joshua came to do another one. So Moses did one, Joshua came to another.
Exactly, and that's where, and then I was making the point of when Jesus is on the Mount of Transfiguration, who were the two people there with him? Moses and Elijah. Now, the guy who follows Moses is Joshua, literally Yeshua, Jesus. I mean, the same name, salvation of the Lord, right? Okay, then we have Elijah. Now, Elijah is followed by Elisha, and Elisha literally means my God is salvation, or salvation is God. So literally following Elijah is salvation, Jesus, right? And then, this is where it starts to make so much more sense when Jesus is saying who needs to be doing the baptism here. John, right? Because who would follow John? Jesus, salvation, because this is the pattern we've seen laid out, literally all the way back to Exodus, to Deuteronomy, this is how it follows. You have the guy who leads you to the water, and brings them in, and then you have the one who... Exactly! And this is where you can see when Jesus is having a conversation with John, and we're talking about John being Elijah, right? Because, well, of course, in that sense, he would have to be. Now, whether or not John is literal Elijah, I don't want to try and get into that whole debate conversation, but just you can see how this is working just from this is the pattern of how this works, right? Because, of course, if salvation couldn't baptize Moses. Salvation couldn't baptize, it's not the order of operations. And that's why it's Moses and Elijah and not Joshua and Elisha. So it just gets to be, it's like, and you can see how the crossing over is so kind of fundamental to getting to how these guys keep going. Because when we're in 2 Kings 2, and we're passing the prophetic mantle from Elijah to Elisha, what are they doing over and over again? They're literally keep Hebrewing again and again and again and again. And that's 2 Kings 2, over and over again. And you start to see how, well, is that helpful? Okay,
Yeah, so I was going to ask, so you said to keep crossing over, keep going. Can I be likened received Jesus, can crossing over be likened to the continuous renewal of our minds?
Amen. Amen. I think as well when it says take every thought captive, right? Am I feel the constant renewal of our mind to really consider and think about everything that's coming in? That is so beautifully said, right? And I think that is such a beautiful way of thinking about how we see that exact kind of similar concept in the New Testament of the continual renewal of our mind, the continual crossing over. Because, right, I'm with Moses and the Israelites as we're leaving Egypt. And I want to suggest we're not really ready to do what? We're not prepared to do what?
Sorry?
To enter the wilderness.
What did you say?
To enter the wilderness.
Ah, okay, right, we're barely prepared to do the wilderness, but we're most certainly not prepared to do where? The promised land. Which just it gets to, I think, the part of the question you were asking a long ago, which is, right, we're not ready for that yet. And yet that still needs to happen, right? So there's going to be multiple crossing overs, and it's kind of laid out from the start. But okay, I got to cross over into the wilderness. But then I got to cross over once I get into the wilderness when I haven't drank water for 3 days, and I need to believe that God didn't bring me here to simply do what? To kill me, right? And I need to cross over again and really have faith and trust that God has a plan for this. Okay, so then we have the bitter waters of Marah. Then I gotta find the ability to cross over again when I'm really, really what now after I've had water? Yeah, I've had water, but we still haven't had what from the Israelites in the wilderness? Food, thank you, right? And I need to cross over again into really trusting and believing that He will provide with food. Right? And there's going to be these continual, for lack of a term, almost micro crossing overs, or what I not feel like it in the moment, right? If I'm hungry or thirsty, but no, I need to cross over again and again and again and again, and then to keep doing that, the continual renewal of our minds, as you said. Louder, please.
The walk of faith.
Amen, brother. Right? The walk of faith. Exactly. Yes.
Just very rapid. So, we know that before Paul got to Rome, where he was executed, he literally crossed over many times different islands before. So is that like some similar going on like that?
Sorry, yeah, you can start to see the crossing overs throughout Scripture. And it's like crossing over is literally all over the place. I mean, there's so many passages that are just kind of, and you start to see it's such a huge and helpful concept, and it's literally everywhere. And what does it mean that we keep being in this crossing over conversation, the continuing renewal of our minds conversation? It's everywhere. Yeah. Verse 1.
Yes.
Okay, verse 1. Verse 1. Could someone please read aloud their verse 1?
Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God.
Thank you very much. Okay, he comes to Horeb, the mountain of God. Now, Horeb, the mountain of God. Is that what everyone has at the end of verse 1?
Yes.
Good. Okay, Horeb, the mountain of God. Now later, this mountain will be called what? Sinai, right? So not only people can have their names changed, but also places and mountains, which is really interesting and is a whole another conversation. But, right, okay, now it's called Horeb. So we're going to deal with it as it is here, Horeb. Horeb comes from the Hebrew word cherev. Cherev. And cherev literally means... sorry.
I have in my head and I just forgot to wait.
I'm sorry. Cherev literally means sword. Sword. Horeb, Cherev, sword. So we're literally looking at Mount Sword, the mountain of God. Now, what the sword would oftentimes represent in Scripture. This is exactly where we're going. What comes from the very tip of the sword? At the other end. The point. And what do you do with the point? Which would cause someone to... what do you say? There you go. And this is where, quite literally, sword, when we think about what this word is meaning, quite literally death and destruction. Right? Mount, sword, death and destruction. Because from the end of the sword comes death and destruction. Right? That you're saying that, yeah. And Horeb, quite literally, mount, sword, mount, death and destruction. So the mountain of God is called the mountain of death and destruction. Now, okay, wait. The mountain of God is called the mountain of death and destruction. What are we talking about? What might be dying here?
Flesh.
Louder, please. The self. Louder, please.
I just remembered Moses.
Moses.
Yeah, no, but at some point, sorry.
Well, wait.
I'm sorry. Don't worry.
No. Okay, right. It's the end of the world as we know it.
Yeah.
Right? Life as I know it is.
It's dead.
It is dead. It is over. Right? In this moment, Moses' life will what? Change forever, and he will never be the same. Right? It literally is the end of the world as we know it. If I'm Moses. Right? Mount, sword, mountain of death and destruction. And as I think you said so beautifully here, what's about to die? Self. Right? We talk sometimes about dying to self. The mountain of God, the mountain of death and destruction. Life as I know it is over. Hell, and what was the word you said?
We're just referring to Joshua yesterday. The sword was drawn to him, and it was death to self, and he reverenced and surrendered.
Oh, you got the whole thing again.
Sorry. So we're referring to Joshua, what we studied yesterday. He walked up to the sword as well, the angel with the sword, and it was almost like a life-changing moment for him, but he reverenced and surrendered.
Okay, and we didn't get there yesterday, but in that passage, in the final verse, the captain of the Lord's host asked Joshua to do what? Remove your sandals from off your feet. The place on which you stand is holy ground. Okay, what are we literally going to do in this verse? These verses are going to take your shoes from off your feet. The place on which you stand is holy ground. Right? Meaning, when you could start to see the layers of Exodus chapter 3 with Joshua chapter 5. It's just kind of like so fun in the different, and looking at what are they doing differently, what are they doing similarly. But you saw that so beautifully. 100% amen.
Is it possible that he wasn't also just referring to physical holy ground, but then he's coming to the presence of God?
Yes! Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes. Amen. Amen. And just, and this is where,
Sorry.
I'm just trying to think if I want to go there or not. Oh, no, I heard that whisper. Okay, sorry. Temptation. So, just the word holy, real fast. Because can you say what you said again? That was so beautifully said.
I said, is it possible that he wasn't referring to physical holy ground, but he was, inviting him to God's presence, the holy presence?
Amen, 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 amen. And to why, just what you said there is amen. The very first usage, first the word holy. The word holy in Hebrew is the word kadosh. Kadosh, like K-A-D-O-S-H, kadosh. And kadosh does mean holy. The concept of holiness, though, literally means what?
Set apart.
Set apart, 100% right. Literally set apart. So when we're saying holy, we're literally saying set apart. Now, we're not going to be able to do any justice to this whole conversation, but anyone want to care to guess the very first time we see the word holy, kadosh, set apart in Scripture?
What was it?
Before Abraham. A lot before Abraham.
In the Garden of Eden.
Even somehow before that. That's possible.
The seventh day?
Louder, please.
The seventh day?
Amen, brother. Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, the passage we didn't choose, the Sabbath. The very first thing referred to as holy set apart is the Sabbath. Now, gang, the Sabbath is about doing what? Resting. And quite literally, Sabbath, or Shabbat in Hebrew, quite literally means to stop. To stop. So Sabbath, quite literally to stop. But we're not just talking about stopping in what? In the physical, we're talking about stopping in what? In the spiritual, and I was just stopping in
Self.
time. Thank you. Right? We're talking about really stopping, not just in the spatial, physical. We're talking about, as you guys said, stopping in the spiritual, stopping in time. And fast enough, the very first thing that's referred to as holy is time. Right? And stopping in time to be with God. Right? The first thing referred to as holy is not something you can really what? Touch or hold or really manipulate. It's right, stopping in time to be in his presence, as you said so beautifully. Actually, the very first thing that's referred to as holy, the Sabbath, the seventh day. And that's where, when you made that comment, it gets to a whole study on the Sabbath, but I just couldn't resist temptation because when you said there, we're not strictly talking physical space, and in fact, it's not to say, and please, I'm not trying to say things of space can't be holy. I mean, clearly there can be, and obviously God is holy. It's just the very first time we see the word, it's in reference to stopping in time to rest really in that space with him, in his presence, as you said, not strictly in the spatial conversation, but really in that time spiritual dimension.
So is it the fact, because I'm just thinking about in this passage, the angel of the Lord appears to Moses, and Moses wants to go over, and Moses speaks to God, and then also in that last passage as well, the Joshua one, he actually has a conversation. He's standing there the whole time, and then he tells him to take. So is it the conversation with God, that presence of God and that exchange with God, is that what makes the space holy?
And I would suggest we're getting to a much huge conversation about what it means to be holy. Not that it's not that spatial is irrelevant, but if I think we're strictly talking a spatial conversation, I think we're missing the beauty in everything what you just said, and that this is clearly a much bigger conversation that is not confined to space. Can you say what you said one more time, Joy? But make it a statement, not a question.
So I'm saying God, so Moses is there already. He appears to him. There's something has happened already. He's stopped already, and then he starts God calls to him. He answers, and then God says, "Where you're standing is holy." And same with Joshua. They have a whole conversation, and then he says, "Take off your sandals. That place is holy." So is it that stopping in time exchange with God that makes the space holy, rather than the space is holy, don't come to it?
Amen, amen, amen. And to this point of just real fast. Oh yeah.
I think you might get into the answer to my question, but I just want to know what it is about the shoes.
Yes! Thank you. Because, okay, now Joy, as you said, because we're not really necessarily talking about the space as much as that time in the presence of the Lord. And this, as you said, can you ask the question again? What is?
Shoes.
What's all this? What's this whole thing about the shoes? Okay, again, why do you wear shoes?
To cover up for the vulnerability.
Oh, you were going to say?
To go out and work.
To go out and work. What are we not doing?
Work.
Meaning.
Stopping.
Ah! If I'm taking off my sandals, I ain't going anywhere. Right? If I have my sandals on, time to keep moving. I take my sandals off. Now it's time to, we're going to stick around for a while. Everyone in this room, gang, all the people who are sitting on the floor, what does no one have on who's sitting on the floor?
Shoes.
Huh. Because why? You're not going right? You're gonna say what? And you can start to see a few peaks of why we're taking off our shoes.
I think God is kind of, right now, we're in a space together, and let's enjoy that space together. It's like a recognition of.
Exactly. You got it. Great question. Yeah.
So we see the stop in the Shabbat, right? And look at what happened in the New Testament. The Jews believed that, they preached that you have to stop everything.
Yeah.
But when Jesus Christ came, we saw that even in the stopping there was some kind of motion.
Yeah.
So what is it that stops exactly, and what moves?
Well, that's if we had studied the Sabbath. Sorry, I'm sorry. It gets to, but you get to a huge conversation, and you can see where. Well, okay. just to do a little, but to not go into this huge, but it gets to where, and this is one of the two biggest conversations that Jesus has in the New Testament with the Pharisees and Sadducees is on the Sabbath, right? And how to do this well. Because doing this well kind of informs a whole many number of different things about life. And part of what the Pharisees and the Sadducees are doing is if they're making it so legalistic. As you said, you stop people from doing anything and everything. And if we had time to unpack, that is just foundationally not how the Sabbath works. It is far more open and nuanced and less prescriptive, and less tight and narrow. And it gets to a very many number of things about too where things change over time. Just as an example, when the people get carried off into exile, the people will do things to literally set themselves apart so that they will not assimilate into the environments and the communities they're in. But what oftentimes happens, especially when in exile, is we tend to hold on to these things really tightly because this is part of how we don't assimilate. And then we return, but guess what doesn't stop? The things we were doing in exile, because we hold on to them really, really tight, because it worked. And so this starts to be the question of what's actually the essential of what God's given us, and what are some of the things that we've added. And it might have made sense in a time and a season to set ourselves apart, to remain holy in that regard, right? As we think about the word. But then why are we still doing this now? And this is part of the huge debate he's having with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You know, when he says the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And that they're making it so prescriptive and so tight and so narrow of what the possibility of things you can do. And that's actually not how it was made. That was not how it was intended in its creation. And you're holding on to things that are no longer relevant, really, for the context of where we are now in the Promised Land again. And you can start to see, get to a much bigger debate, and if we have more time to study the Sabbath, we could really get it more, but you can start to see in the exile, and especially when they leave the land, how different things get added and then don't get taken away when they return, and are just kept because that's how we've always done it. We'll think. Great question. Okay. Are people up for doing one more big thing?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Verse 2. Verse 2. Could someone please read aloud their verse 2? Thank you. Just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. So, now we're going to unpack this bush a bit because this bush is going to be really helpful in understanding what's going on. The bush here is called a sneh. A sneh, like S-N-E-H, sneh, sneh, S-N-E-H, sneh, is the name of this bush. Now, why this bush is really helpful to understand. Here we have Moses, and there's an angel of the Lord, right? It'll say, most translations, right? An angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire out of a bush. He gazed, and there was a bush all aflame, yet the bush was not consumed. Okay. Now, this bush, a sneh, is a bush that is actually fairly commonplace throughout a lot of the Middle East, and throughout a lot of parts of more particularly dry areas in the Middle East. This bush would be fairly common. Now, how this bush reproduces is really helpful in that this bush is a bush, so a sneh makes more little baby snehs it has these oils in its leaves. Oils. Has these oils in its leaves. And these oils, on days when it gets really, really, really hot, imagine like 45 to 55, gets really, really, really hot, and 0% humidity, what's going to happen to this bush? Louder please? It catches fire. And literally, in its catching fire, it will do what? Burn. And in burning, in flaming up, it will also shoot out. Louder please? Spread what? And those oils are also what? Louder please? Seeds. Absolutely right. In these leaves of these bushes, these snehs, they have it's oils, and these oils have the seeds in these leaves, and when it catches fire, it will literally burn up, the seeds will go flying, and it makes more little snap bushes. And that's how a snap gets to be a snap. Is literally by fire burning up. Meaning, this bush being on fire is what?
It's a law.
Okay, well, that gets to a whole step. But, so that gets to something we talked about this morning. Yesterday, morning, I should say. It's a very good thing. But, okay, you're 100% right. Yes, you're 100% right. And,
It multiplies while it's on fire.
it multiplies, reproduces. What do you say? It reproduces, right? This bush makes new snaps, meaning it being on fire is actually very, very what? Good. And also, louder please? Normal. Thank you. This bush, a snap on fire, is like Tuesday. Right? If I'm wandering around the wilderness, you know what I would see tons of? Snez on fire. Like, I mean, this would not be an uncommon occurrence. A bush burning is just normal. This bush on fire is like about, what is something that if you walk down the street in Lagos would be incredibly normal to see? Traffic. What else? Buses, bikes, cars. People. What did you say? It's everyday life walking around the street. It's just a burning bush. Except this bush is what?
Not consumed.
Not consumed. Right? Meaning, what's actually extraordinary about this bush is not that it's on fire. This bush being on fire is about as normal as everyday life can possibly be. Like I said, imagine walking down the street seeing something you've seen a million times. Someone on a bike or someone trying to sell you something, right? It's like you can't kind of go a day and have it not happen. It's just that this bush is not consumed. Now, where this gets to be a do not try this at home advisory. I happen to know someone who, when they were in the Middle East, they were actually in Israel for a bit, and they went into the wilderness and found a sneh and decided to light it on fire to see how long it would take to burn up. Again, this is a do not try this at home statement. But the person who did this, and they said it takes roughly 60 to 90 seconds for this bush to burn up. So for the sneh, this bush to burn up, it would take roughly 60 to 90 seconds. Meaning, Moses needs to be able to do what? In order to see this bush isn't burning up. Louder, please.
Stop it.
Say it again, please. He needs to stop and wait long enough to see that the bush is not being consumed. Right? Meaning, it's real life. Moses is supposed to be doing what as he's going around the wilderness? Tending the flock. What's kind of like shepherding 101? You shouldn't probably take your eyes off of what? The sheep when there's what around?
Fire.
Burning bushes that are like fiery bushes. Kind of shepherding 101. Please look at the sheep. But he actually, as you said, has to stop. And as you also said, wait long enough to see that the bush is not consumed. Now, it's real life. 60 to 90 seconds. And, as you said, he's got to stop and wait and really just kind of do what? Look at it, right? And it's real life. 15 seconds, bush on fire. 38 seconds, bush still on fire. 54 seconds, bush still on fire. 68 seconds, should go out any time now. 79 seconds, any second now. 95 seconds, this might be the longest time I've ever waited. 135 seconds, this is getting odd. 3 minutes, I don't know what's going on here. And Moses, as he's just staring at this bush, can't do what? Louder, please. can't see the flock. What else can he not do if he's really going to see that this bush is not consumed? Ah! He can't keep moving. He also can't try to do what? What was that? Move close to the fire. Put it out. In order to really see it, he also can't try to do what?
Quench the fire.
Okay, and I was just quench the fire, not in just a literal sense, but also in a can't forget about it. I want to just quench the fire in a explain it away sense. Right? I can't try to rationalize. Well, this is a fascinating ecological phenomenon. There's a weird plant guy down the street. I guess I'll go home and ask him, what's with these bushes that take so long to burn up? Right? He can't whip out his cell phone and Google it and try to say, what are there bushes that don't stop burning? Right? He can't take a selfie with it. Right? He can't try to capture the moment. He simply needs to do what? Stop, wait, focus. You said observe and then ask. And the question he says is, I must turn aside and see this great sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up? As you said, stop, wait, be present, observe, and then ask a question. Why doesn't this bush burn up? He can't go past the moment. He can't try to explain it away. He can't try to rationalize it.
It actually says that when God saw that he had gone over to look, then God called him. So I wonder if God had been trying to get his attention for a while, like with these bushes and over. And like finally today he sees it. Because it's almost like God was waiting for him to be curious, you know.
Okay. Joy, so well said. Just real fast in this vein. Look, you have
It goes with this. So is there significance in them saying, and he turned?
Yeah, there is. What was that? Okay, well, just real fast, and then, and 100% yes to your question. Well, there is a significance to turning aside, and there's multiple words for turn in this one. Like, it's really kind of turning with your whole self. You're like, I must turn aside to see this great sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up? Now, just to return to what Joy said for a moment longer here, which is, and Joy, that was so beautifully said, here's again kind of the what if question. How many times might there have been bushes that were burning and not consumed before this moment, potentially? Right? Because, it's real life. If I'm Moses, if I'm walking down the street in Lagos, what am I probably not going to spend too much time looking at? Traffic, or someone trying to sell me something, right? Or the guy on the bike that almost cut me off. I might have a few thoughts, but I'm probably not going to say a whole lot or look for very long. But I might have to happen a number of times for me to maybe really see it. Which of course begs the question of, is this the first time there was a burning bush? Is this like the 8,327 time? Like all of the, how many burning bushes might there have been in order for Moses to actually see it? Because it's real life. This is something that is just wildly normal, kind of painfully common, super duper ordinary, and yet this time it's what? Not burning up. I want to suggest it's different. Okay, I'll take that, right? Meaning, it's something that appears completely ordinary, and yet it's actually extraordinary, right? Meaning, I want to suggest the challenge here for Moses is seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, right? The bush burning up, not consumed, is a painfully ordinary, common, everyday, it's Tuesday occurrence. Except for this time, it's extraordinary, right? What does it mean to see the extraordinary in the ordinary? Right? Meaning, if I'm walking around the street, just looking for a bush burning, not consumed, what am I probably not going to see?
A bush
burning, not consumed. I'm not entirely familiar with all of the places here, but I'm just going to venture to guess. There's not a whole bunch of snares around, right? Meaning, if I'm looking for a bush burning, not consumed, probably not going to find it. right? The burning bush moment is something that at first glance appears so painfully ordinary. Like it just could not be more everyday, same old, common. And yet, this time it's extraordinary. Right, this is the burning bush. Okay, any final questions, comments, thoughts before we turn the conversation?
So he said Moses had to have stared at the bush for a bit before he realized that it wasn't. So since it was so ordinary, what was it about the bush that had him staring for that long?
Here's the $64,000 question, right? Why is Moses staring at bushes, right? Like this is the truly, what is he doing staring at this bush? It really, because it doesn't say he saw God, or he doesn't say he saw the angel of the Lord, right? What he says, I must turn aside and see this great sight. Why does the bush burn up? He doesn't reference the angel of the Lord or the Lord. He's talking about why the bush isn't burning up. Meaning, I was just to your point, he seems like someone in this moment who's really doing what? Louder, please? Observing, right? Meaning he's not going through life how?
In a hurry.
Well, I gotta get from here to there, and then I got 37 things on my to-do list, and I gotta get home with all the sheep because my wife's making dinner, and I don't have time for this, bush burning nonsense or whatever's going on right there. He's observing. He's not in a hurry. He's willing to really stop, wait, come present, be aware, ask a question. He's not flying around. Now, why this bush is, to your point, is a phenomenal question. He doesn't seem to be in a hurry, because in order to really see this, he can't be doing 87,000 other things in his head to really see it and observe it,
So
recognize it.
I feel like him just staring at that bush is kind of like symbolic to meditation. Yeah, like meditating on maybe the word. And the part where he said, I'm amazed, I must go see it. And then he moved forward, and then God now spoke to him. It kind of reminds me of, if you come nearer to me, I'll come nearer to you.
Okay, amen, and I want to suggest, right, and what's causing us to come nearer to him, that then he comes nearer to us, is the ability to see what? The bush not consumed, right? Something extraordinary in the ordinary. It's drawing us in, and then us recognizing, oh no, this isn't just any old. Draws us further in, instead of draws him. There's this continual moving closer. Yeah.
Sorry. So is there a connection? Let me say how it's in my head. We see a bush that is supposed to burn because wood burns, but it's not burning. And we see a lot how they talk about gold doesn't burn. So is there a connection between this burning bush and the golden candlesticks? The seven spirits of God. Is that like?
That's a really good question. Well, it seems to be, would want to think about it more. There seems to be a connection to another thing, but it would just take too much time. But something that's fiery that never burns out seemingly seems not so disconnected from this, but that's a whole other study. But I think you are already thinking about, I wasn't going to say anything. But this is where thinking about fire not going out is a very helpful thing to be thinking about and what we're talking about here. Because here it's a bush, but think about fire not going out. I think is a very helpful trajectory of movement of what we're looking at here, which Joe's kind of pointing to. Was that helpful? Okay, yeah. So yeah. Think about fire not burning out, and it really helps to layer on levels of what we're looking at. But and you can even think about for the candlesticks, the fire that doesn't go out in the tabernacle, with the lights, so that you can start to see how that makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would make sense. And we're talking about the presence of God. Yeah. Yeah, I can see how you would get there. Interesting. Any other final questions, comments, thoughts? Okay.
I have a question, but we're taking us off course, so maybe I should ask you when we're done.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, it's in Genesis. So the part where God,
was sorry, like he regretted what he had done, what that he created man. And also I also saw that in the book of Samuel when he was sorry that he made Saul king. So it was like God kind of regretted his action, and I don't really understand.
Yeah, we would need to study that Genesis 6 verses 6 and 7 because there's yeah, we would need to study it. We would need like a full at least 2 hours. If not. I'm sorry, but if one of these nights, because it's actually this conversation has come up in this thing before, so maybe one of these nights we can do that because that is a phenomenal subject to do this study. I would take a question. It's a phenomenal question, and because there is a lot more going on there, and you're right to be curious about there being more there than meets the eye. There's a lot more happening in that verse, in those verses, because it does say them multiple places. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Looking now for. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So is it possible for God to be trying to get our attention and then we miss out? Now look at the time where God wanted to speak with Elijah. Now there was the earthquake, there was the fire and all of that. And then he thought God would have been in the midst of all of that. And God wasn't there, it's just still. So how do we not miss out on this moment? Sometimes it might not be the bush burning. It might be this still small voice, something insignificant. So how do we get to
Yeah, and that's why I want to suggest actually the burning bush is the still small voice. It's ordinary. Right? I want to suggest they're actually two in the same. To your dimension of the 1 Kings 19, the burning bush is ordinary. The burning bush is not fire crashing out from heaven, a big mighty earthquake shattering. It's the burning bush is the still small voice. And I think that's some of the things that is so hard to climb out of at times, which is it's not that God can't communicate to us in these big monumental actions, right? It's not that God can't communicate to us in the parting of the Red Sea, or on top of Mount Sinai, and the still small voice, and the wildly ordinary thing in our daily life. And that seems to be not infrequently how God's communicating with us. To your exact point, that this actually seems almost more common than the big, showy, movie special effects version God communication. Right? It seems to be actually in the kind of painfully ordinary common is this so very often. And I think, to your point, it asks us to not move how. I want you just to really see the ordinary, but he's in it. The still small voice asks us to be moving how. What was that? What did you say? Towards the Lord and. Sorry, yes. Okay. So, in your question, I heard you ask how, right? How do we? I want to suggest whether it's the still small voice or the burning bush, the ordinary thing, and yet God's in it. I want to suggest, in order to really see it, I agree 100%, moving towards God and also not moving out. Absent-mindedly.
In a hurry.
Thank you. And in a huge hurry as if I know everything I always need to do. Right? To slow down, to stop, and wait long enough to pay attention, to come present, to really focus, to not be going a million miles an hour all the time. I want you to is part how we hear those still small voices, in that, it runs so counter to our culture. When it sometimes talks about an upside down kingdom, I think this is one of the things it means, right? It's not in we have to move faster. Productivity is best. Always achieving more on your to-do list in a day means you had a better day. It was more successful. It was gooder, right? Because I got done everything on my to-do list. I had a better day than you. What does it mean to actually say, oh no, I'm gonna slow down, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna be patient, I'm gonna come present to what God might be doing in the midst of whatever I might think I have for the day. To really hear that still small voice, as you pointed to so beautifully, because it's not always going to be in the big flash.
Sorry, following up on that question, doesn't it seem that sometimes when you're on full speed and you're going really fast and it seems like God literally has to have like a
Yeah, it's I mean, I think to your point, God wants us to Sabbath, to stop pretty bad. Whether and it's incredible sometimes what has to happen in order for us to stop. To your point, it's not always pleasant. What's happening with Elijah fleeing from Jezebel is not particularly pleasant, right? It's not as if everything's hunky dory for him in the moment, right? And yet, it's forcing him to hopefully maybe stop.
Yeah, because it seems like after that happens, then you hear the same stories.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, from this trajectory, right? So, we see the still small voice in the burning bush, right? So, is there a link between this burning bush that Moses saw, the voice Elijah heard, and the light that Paul encountered on the way to Damascus? Is there?
What'd you say? Yeah, there you go, right? The importance of stopping. What is it actually? Yeah, the importance of stopping. I think that's so well said. And even in the Joshua one that we looked at last night, right? Again, the stopping. I actually asked the question of what do you command your servant?
And for Elijah, he had to look for extraordinary in the ordinary. So it was beyond, and again, I think it even debunks this idea of what we think is extraordinary. We think that extraordinary has to be grand, it has to be loud, but then it could be in the very, it could be in the most quiet things, the tiniest things that we can easily miss.
It can be so easy to miss. I mean, to your point, in Joshua 5, in verse 13, it simply says he saw a man. It doesn't say he saw the captain of the Lord's army. It simply says he saw a man. As you said, it can just at first glance appear, I can just keep on moving, right? Nothing to see here. And yet, exactly. Yeah.
So at the beginning of verse 2 says the angel of the Lord, but then subsequently it says God. What happened to the angel? And the angel was.
Yeah. So this gets to there's actually at least 3 people or 3 dynamics of God we're talking about here, because in your verse 2 begins by saying what? The angel of the Lord. Okay, now can you read your verse 4?
But the Lord saw that he turned away to look. God calls to him from the midst of the bush and says, Moses, Moses.
Okay, right. So we have the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame, right, in verse 2. But then the Lord saw to him, and then God spoke to him. Right? We have at least 3 different dimensions, dynamics of God present in this passage, at least, right? Because we have the angel of the Lord, then we have the Lord, and then we have God. And we're using different names here. Because in your verse 4, as you said, when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to look, God called to him.
Because it says, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing flame of fire from the midst of the bush. Mm-hmm. Was there a man in the bushes in the snare as well? Or was it the angel of
Sorry, the angel, yes.
It says the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing flame of fire from the midst of the bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush was on fire, yet it was not consumed. But in verse 3, it doesn't sound like the angel caused him to stop and stare. No. He was looking at just the bush and fire.
Yes.
But the angel is mentioned and was present.
Yes, absolutely.
Why did the angel have to be there? Was he the one who started the fire, kept it burning? God was waiting for him to say something or to.
Does the angel look like fire? Was this looking like the fire?
Possible that it was because of the presence of the angel of the Lord that made him sense or made him like, I don't know.
It's possible, totally possible, but it doesn't indicate anything of that in this question. That's the tension of his question. Says, I must turn aside to see this great sight. Why does the bush burn up? He doesn't say anything about anything being in the bush, other than the bush not burning up. I mean, to your point, it's possible that maybe there's like a spirit or energy that draws the attention to. But it doesn't say, in his question, he's not referencing anything relating to the angel of the Lord, which is part of the tension of. Alright? Yeah.
So two things. One, sorry. So I see in Psalms where it said that God makes his angels a flame. And then I see in the New Testament where Paul and Stephen talk about how the law was given to the Israelites by angels. So like, is that what's going on? I think that's a very big concept.
We need more time to unpack angels. It's kind of the whole thing here too. It would be helpful if we had.
I think of angels and messengers of God.
Yeah.
The angel was sent, and the angels represented the angel was sent to probably called on him.
Yeah, so, okay, just really quickly on angels, I promise real fast. Angel in Hebrew is the word malach, and malach does mean angel. It also literally means the word is used. Messenger. And angels are so often doing what? Delivering a message, right? And so literally the word angel in Hebrew, malach, also literally means messenger, and they're pretty much always delivering messages, which is why it would make a lot of sense that it would say the angels of God gave the Torah, because of course messengers would deliver the message. You know, you can see why that would work in a number of ways.
So in a way, and it's a question, but then does this then mean that it doesn't matter if like in the way in Joshua, where he approached the man, and then some translations say an angel, some say or connote that it might have been Jesus, God, etc., etc. But then does it then mean that whether it's messenger of God carrying out a message, or God himself in the form of Jesus, as some people would like to allude to, that it's basically God's message being delivered or God's will being done?
Exactly, and that's why
The
the notion of utter separation would be kind of ludicrous. Not that it's necessarily exactly the same, but the notion of being utterly separate entities doesn't quite fly. It's delivering a message. That's what humans are doing. Like they're delivering messages, and so often from God. Not always, but so often from God. And to your point of and sometimes that's where they'll say more angel. Oftentimes it's from God, and other times messengers. Sometimes if it's from people, we can use the same word in Hebrew, and that's where kind of context will inform. Will they translate angel, will they translate messenger, because it can mean both. And I think to your point, so beautifully said about, they're bringing the message from God. This is what the angel of the Lord is doing. And it is a fascinating just dynamic in this Exodus 3, as you asked just at the beginning, because it says the angel of the Lord and God. We're talking about three different names here, and you can start to see the interplay of, yeah.
Okay, so I've read somewhere that when it says angel, it's just talking about angel, and when it says the angel of the Lord, it's actually a member of the Trinity, like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I don't know if that gives any kind of.
What gets to be hard in the Hebrew is that, so when it says angel of the Lord, it says Malach Yahweh. Now, which literally means angel, Lord. Malach, angel, Yahweh, Lord. What's hard is rarely, if ever, will it say Ha Malach Yahweh, because you wouldn't put the definite article the ha, the is not a separate word in Hebrew. It's a letter that attaches to being a word, and they don't put a definite article the when it's a proper name. So it gets into this whole debate of, is it an angel of the Lord or the angel of the Lord? And strictly speaking, in Hebrew, it's the same two words in Hebrew. So that's where it gets to be hard, because like my translations will say an angel of the Lord. I know others that say the angel of the Lord. The isn't there, but it also isn't not there because it's followed by the name of the Lord, which has the. You would automatically, that's kind of a really painful grammar lesson. I apologize that got me. But it's because it's hard, because even though in the one sense it's not there, it's totally there, because you would never say the Abraham, right, or the Moses, but you would obviously, if you were talking about a messenger of Moses, it would be the messenger of Moses. So you never put the on messenger. Right? You would just know, messenger of Moses, messenger of Moses. And so that's where, and the same would hold true with how it looks with God. So So that's where if there's no Lord, it's pretty easy to say just angel. When it's angel of the Lord, you can see how pretty easily you put on the. Even though you don't see it, you could definitely do it because even though you don't see the letter, it would absolutely be applied. Yeah. Great question. Okay, looking now for one thing you're going to take home from our time of sitting together tonight. I personally find it really helpful to hear one thing from everyone, and also find it can be helpful for others to reinforce something that was said, or bubble back up to the surface. And sometimes in sharing one thing, it can provide another angle or a lens or perspective on something we explored. No need to go in any particular order, whoever would like to start.
So the part where Moses was staring at the burning bush and God had to call him before he turned, that was really profound. He said something earlier about taking off the sandals and that place of rest. A lot of times God is speaking to us and we're just caught up in so many things that we don't recognize where God is speaking or where God is nudging us to turn and just look at Him. I found that it's very important, thinking on it now, it's very important that we are very attentive to the Spirit of God. He was captivated by the bush and he did not even recognize the presence of God until he was called upon.
I learned about time, about holy and time and balance, about spending time, and about it's not just about not working, busy, or just going to church or sometimes, and just say keeping it holy. Like you come to understand what holy really means, what keeping the Sabbath holy means, and what it means to be in the presence of God in that Sabbath.
For me, it really started in my Bible, especially because right from when I was a kid, the burning bush is meant to be like a miracle for me. Like it's meant to be like, oh, burning bush, right? And then with this context now saying that in the Middle East there, snares that bushes, it just makes me realize that I don't know what I've read in the Bible again that I think, like in my mind, like in my mind now, like even the parting of the Red Sea, I hope, because in my mind I just always think, I hope there's nothing to that one again. I'm just saying, in my mind I just thought it was burning bush, so it just brings a lot of context to see that it's actually a norm, it's something that's normal. That one for me is, I still need some time to digest that one.
I think for me it's almost similar with her. I was just talking about it that we grew up seeing the burning bush as this amazing miracle that God did and caught Moses' attention. But then just a reminder as well that He's actually in the very ordinary things, He's speaking in the ordinary things. Because really and truly, you just debunked everything I've known for 30 years about the burning bush. But just a reminder that God is in the ordinary things, doing extraordinary, and if you don't pay close attention to it, you might miss it.
Okay, for me, I think it's about stopping and asking. With her guys story, we talked about asking, like questions, and these questions help us to have a relationship with God, a better relationship. So with the burning bush, we are always busy. We're always doing something. I think personally for me, I'm always, I'm always busy. So I was just sitting there like, okay, oh yeah, stop. I don't sit down and I don't stop. As in stop, wait, observe, ask a question. So I don't know, but for me the stop has just gone to me to my head and it's something I would chew on more.
For me, the teacher is a reminder of God's love and His patience. This songwriter said, "You know me when I didn't care, He was patient until I came." So that it could wait. for the first 80 years of Moses' life, there was no conversation between him and God recorded. And then by the time when God really needed him, he came and he showed up. He could come to stop us even when we don't want to stop us. Jonah was running away, God had to stop him. Balaam was going to go, he stopped the donkey. Saul was going to Damascus, he stopped him there. So it's not easy to stop. We see everyone running on high speed, no one's just there, and then nobody wants to stop. But when God really wants to give us the right direction, we will do anything just to get our attention.
So I think it was getting to see our lives like the preparation for our lives. That stood out for me. Just our lives are preparation for our lives. So everything that has happened in the past, it's not coincidence, and it didn't just happen because it actually happened for a reason. So there is a clearer picture now, so I can go back and say, okay, this event happened because of these events that were going to happen. So and then just getting to stop. Yeah, I think that's for everyone. Just getting to stop and noticing that okay, God is actually speaking through this, even though it seems a bit ordinary, but there's something extraordinary in it. So yeah, that's my points.
For me, it's sometimes you need to take your eye off the flock, and like Moses did. I mean, he could have been watching his flock, that's doing his job, what he's always known to do. But he paid attention. It's a reminder to maintain more, just stay. That's what.
For me, the Shabbat, it really goes like I'm just seeing it every single place. I see the Shabbat on the cross, and I now understand why Jesus Christ could do things on the Shabbat, because the Shabbat is not just about stopping; it's about starting something else. And I just see that, and I can connect it to the death of the old man and the birth of the new man. So it's like, yeah, I don't understand why Paul said that the day of the Lord will come until the son of perdition is exposed. So the Shabbat only happens when the old stops. So I'm just, yeah, it's like, yeah.
For me, it's still tied to what he said about our lives and the preparation for our lives. So we can be very bothered sometimes about our past, present, and what the future will look like. But hearing that, it's kind of comforting. It still brings us back to the place where we stop and ask that question, so what would you have me do? But it's not asking that question from a place of worry, but really from a place of rest, because you know that the past is preparation and for the future anyway. And the part about the sandals, your sandals I talked about, I went home worried that we didn't talk about it, and I kept asking myself, I had to do some Hebrew studies today to really, but all I saw was sandal. But hearing what you said, using the sandal, just relax and let's just, it's not about the ground being holy, but spend time sharing that's fun. Thank you.
Yeah, the sandal thing for me was huge as well, and that was the exact same that really bothered me yesterday because I wanted to ask the question, and I was like, yeah, and I was really like, because I was kind of like, why is that place holy? Like, what makes the place holy? And yeah, so the conversation around that for me was really good, like just like God's constant invitation to us, and yeah.
I think from the point of crossing the Jordan and the Red Sea and then back to the Jordan, and then what it really means to Hebrew, and how it's an invitation to constantly renew our minds today, and for every time we go into impossible places. I mean, who crosses the Red Sea with their legs, or who crosses a river, flowing river, with their foot? It's a call to trust God more, deeper intimacy, and then which would yield more obedience. And so in a way, just to reference relationship, the relationship with the burning bush, when it's on fire, like you said, how that's when it spits out the seeds and then it reproduces. And even in those moments when we feel like, this is impossible, this can't be happening to me, when God is sort of putting us through seeing crucibles, we produce seed again, and then I don't know, life just regenerates, we just reproduce, and it continues. And then also, yes, the shoes, the shoes, and an invitation. It's not a place, but it's a moment in time when God is calling us to rest, and it's really reassuring now, because I think for me something happened a while back, and I just thought, this is absolutely crazy. This is ludicrous. In fact, people said this cannot be God, But now I understand that, especially if you're going at such speed, it's really hard or sometimes impossible, depending on, I don't know, our circumstances, to hear God or to understand what He's trying to, where He's trying to lead us. And then it really takes that moment of the burning bush for us to understand that, stop, there's something I need to show you. God didn't want to just show him a burning bush and teach him how to reproduce the seeds. He wanted to tell him, you're a deliverer, you're going to go back to Egypt, you're going to take my people and lead them out of Egypt, basically. So it's so much.
And what she said, you also bring me back to like, even for us in the Old Testament, Jesus has always been present. With the crossing over, there's always Jesus present in the old, now to the new.
I know God always had reconciliation in mind. Like you said, the grafting, even with the mixed multitudes, they crossed over and they became Hebrew. And so being sons of Abraham or being children of Abraham isn't just about descent or ancestry or bloodline, but about a posture of heart, willing to submit and accept, accept God, basically. Accept God.
God is so intentional. And in fact, I'm just in awe of everything that has been said today. And one thing I would say is the waiting, when you wait, you access the supernatural. So when you are, because I've been asking the Lord a lot of questions, not a lot, but basically wanting to encounter Him like never before. But I'm sensing, I'm hearing that it's from the waiting. It's not from the activity. I won't say it's from the activity. It's from just the stillness that you access a different.
Oh, what was it?
No, I was asking, are we still asking questions?
No. So there's a couple from us we haven't heard from yet. No pressure if you don't feel like sharing. I just want to give those who haven't had a chance to share 5 more seconds if they would like to.
Yeah, I guess for me,
The one thing.
I guess for me it's just, I'm just bowled over by the fact that he's just a master planner, nothing about our lives, no matter how overwhelmed we might get about it, intimidates God. He's planned everything. True. And I like the way you made us look at the evolution of Moses' life. And we saw how he started, basically he was born and it was illegal for him to be alive, and then how he went to become a prince, and like the twists and the turns, and especially like at 70, like the way we like to just peg everything, the way society orients us to think, like, at this stage this should be achieved, at that stage, that thing can just put so much pressure on you when you find yourself out of odds with the status quo, So just to know that God isn't intimidated by that, and for God, where there was a full stop there, that was just like his comma. He was now starting, he was now taking over. So and I also like the way when you explained about the transfiguration and when Elijah and Moses, and like nothing about our life surprised him, and I think it's so reassuring. It's so comforting. Like nothing, he doesn't blink an eye. What we call panic is not panic for him. Like his perspective is completely different. What is our crisis is not a crisis for him. So, I've just been bowled over by that. But the fact that he's a master weaver, master planner, and yeah, he's got this. So we'll keep crossing over.
Alright, okay, for me it's still the same with Joshua and Moses. The fact that they had to stop reading. Because I'm reading CJB here and it says, Moshe said, I'm going to go over and see this amazing sight and find out why the bush isn't burnt up. He was in awe of the fact that the bush wasn't burning up. But sometimes it's possible for God to try to get your attention. You're seeing all the signs, but you're still trying to find your way. You're still trying to do your own thing, but you're seeing all the signs. But he deliberately decided to stop to see. And it calls my attention to, take time to observe what God is doing. And because it's always saying or doing something, stop, observe, take note of it. And same with Joshua. He saw the man, he didn't know who the man was, but then he decided to, go, just like God told him in Joshua 1, be courageous, be bold enough to, go forward. And then he went and figured out that, okay, it's out of the ordinary. And then he stayed there. I believe that the fact that they had, like you said, they pulled their shoe, I believe it was for a long time. They spent quite a while, even though it wasn't stated, hearing and taking instructions, and before they went ahead to do what they were asked to do. So just that's the
So I think for me, it's the same thing that has been happening. I'm just seeing the mind and the heart of God, and how it's so easy to assume that God's this emotional individual that only makes decisions from his emotions. Like, so when he's happy, he does good things. When he's upset, he does bad things. But now I'm actually seeing the mind and the heart of God. That he doesn't just do random things. Everything he does has a reason and there is a plan. And in understanding his mind, he's also able to help us understand his heart, which is like having an architect. It's just like seeing an architect's blueprint without actually understanding the heart behind the design. I'm seeing the blueprint and I'm also understanding the heart, and I see how they both go hand in hand. And it's just so gracious. Like, it feels like I'm understanding a friend better. So thank you so much.